Welcome in the House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Victor Producer, and joining me, as always, is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated MMQB. And Gilbert, we've reached that point in the season where we put a bow on it and we look back and talk about the highs and the lows that was the 2025 season. Gilbert, how are you doing, sir? But before we get into the positives and some negatives, I just wanted to ask you in terms of like what you've been writing about and talking about the Rams here as well, and as we look back at it, what was like one of your biggest takeaways from this season?
Yeah, you know what? I honestly think and I know it's an easy one, but I've mentioned this before, but I think the way that Matthew Stafford played, it really, I'm trying to find ways not to repeat myself, but because I already wrote about this, and maybe people obviously not everybody reads my work, but you should at SI.com. But uh, the way I describe this season and then trying to look ahead is like, don't worry about Matthew Stafford's age. Like, you've actually created a second Super Bowl window, like a legit one. Like, I think 2023 and 24 was like, all right, can this philosophy work in the post all gas, no brakes, F them picks, let's make a bunch of trades era? Like, they was trying to feel out if it worked. You go to the wild card round, you lose in Detroit, then you go to the divisional round and you lose in Philadelphia. But now when they got to Seattle, and yeah, they lost, but it felt like a big disappointment because they had Super Bowl potential. Last couple years, I kept telling you, there's a ceiling here. It feels like there's like a point here where they won't break it. This year, I felt like there was a real Super Bowl chance, even though they had some big weaknesses that we're going to talk about. But
Yeah.
to kind of summarize, like the way that Stafford's playing, you better make sure you bring that guy back. I don't care about age, and we're going to talk about my top 100 in a bit. And I was thinking about that. I don't care that he's 37 or about to be 38. I think he still has one more good year in him. So go maximize it. Go do what you can to fix special teams. Go do what you can to fix the secondary. So in a way, it's starting to become, for at least for one season, Vic, the F them picks era where like you just go all in and get whatever you can to help those two areas. But even if you want to get greedy and you want to add another wide receiver, you want to add another running back, obviously add to the O line, add a star cornerback, Jalen Ramsey, like 2021. Like, you need something to get over that hump to win it all because you have that window right now.
Yeah, and I think for me, I guess the biggest takeaway from the season is Matthew Stafford and the fact that we started the season not knowing what to expect from him, right? There was a lot of talk in terms of how bad it was, whether or not they should put him on IR. And then he had, he led, he was he was in the top three in terms of snaps this season for the Rams. So even with all that, if you would have told me that he wasn't going to miss a game, that he was going to play through the whole season and into the playoffs, I would have said that you were smoking something, because just the way we were looking at that coming into the off season, and then where we ended up. I thought, to me, like what Matthew Stafford did this season was just, you know, one of the best things I've seen in terms of following a team. The last, what is it, 30 years that I've been watching football. It's one of the best up there, and I know, we get, you know I guess what I want to say in terms of, when we have special seasons like this, we kind of take them for granted. And so, having a season like this, I think you should, even without a Super Bowl, I think you should appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a fun season overall because it was high scoring, very explosive team. Last year's Matthew Stafford kind of was going through a lot of ups and downs. There were some stagnant times, and I remember, you reminded me. I think after the season, I'm like, there were some long stretches where they weren't really that good offensively, and we kept saying this: the defense is stepping up, the defense is helping here, and then they did pick it up towards the end, like the final month of the season, especially in the playoffs. Stafford was pretty red hot. Uh, but there were some long stretches where, like, okay, maybe this is what he's doing. He's pacing himself because he's older. This year, man, it was just nothing but 100% all gas and like, okay, uh, And going back to the two Seattle games in Seattle, the best defense in the NFC, at least I thought the best defense in football was Houston, but in the NFC, he carved them up twice, over 370 yards, 375 yards in both of those games, uh, 3 touchdowns in each game, no interceptions in both games. So like to like make them look like a paper thin defense, that tells you everything. And I think Sean McVay said it at the presser after the championship game. He has to be MVP. If he's not, I don't know what the hell we're doing here. He is playing the best football from any quarterback, and he's 100% accurate.
Yeah, and we'll get more into in depth into what Matthew Stafford did this season. As we kind of, I have 10 things that I want to get into here. We'll be quick with them. It'll be a short show, and I just want to give a shout out here. We have Michael Armenta. What up, compas? What up, Michael Armenta? It's good to have you guys on here. All right, Gilbert, I'm going to be quick here in terms of Rams news and notes, and we're going to start off with you. You are part of the Rams news and notes segment. You wrote a column or you wrote a story. You have Gilbert, your top 100 players, and I want you to explain this because I think a lot of people are confused as to what you did with this, and you have 3 Ram players on there. I'm not going to say who they are. I want you to talk about it, but I also want you to explain, how you came and to writing this article.
Yeah, so a lot of times, and it's kind of a combination of me and my editors thinking. But the reason why I ran with this was like we do have a lot of top 100 lists that come out where it's like, yeah, we review who was the best player in 2025, and or whatever season it is that we're finishing it. And it's fine to do that, I think, in January and February. Yeah, you want to recap the season. And I've seen a few come out lately, not as many. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, they mostly occur in the summertime when it's like the slow period of the NFL and people need to fill a bunch of space out there and create
It's
debates
called
because there's
ranking season.
yeah, it's ranking season, which I hate. That's between like May and July, and we just try to find ways to create conversations and back and forth. But I hate that because you're like weeks removed or weeks away from a new season, and we're just doing a review of what we just saw. And you know, why are we adding to what we just know and what's established? Because the season's gonna be full of surprises, especially this one that we just finished. So like, why were we recapping to say, okay, these teams were good and these players were good, so that we all have the same mindset. We're all thinking, yeah, nothing's gonna change, right? And I hate that, and it kind of makes you fall into the trap. So all these reviews of the season, don't give them to me in the summer. Give it to me fine in January. I don't give a crap. But what I did differently to kind of to take it to a next level, I'm trying to predict what's going to happen, before the season arrives. What's going to happen from September to February, and I'm going to take my best shot at it. And I know people are very confused about that. They're thinking that I'm doing a top 100 for what happened in 2025. My top 100 is for what's going to happen out after 2026. The easy way to say is who will be the top 100 players a year from today. And I think people get lost with that because you see the rankings, you see a social media graphic, and they don't read the intros. They don't read me explaining nonstop through 3 stories. This is about the future. I even made a Back to the Future joke. Let's go get the DeLorean and go look ahead. But nobody cares. But the point is, the reason why I think it's a good time to do that, and maybe eventually people will catch on, is because the season is just finished. All the surprise and the chaos is fresh in people's minds. So I think maybe this is a good time of year for people to accept changes that could come. Like, yeah, we didn't see the Seahawks and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I get what you're saying when you're picking the Cardinals to win the NFC West. I'm not doing that again, by the way. But yeah, we get what you're saying. Bryce Young being maybe an MVP because nobody thought that Drake May would be a top 2 finalist. Yeah, we see it because Matthew Stafford was supposed to retire 2 years ago, and now he is a for sure MVP finalist here. So when that chaos is fresh in people's minds, I think that's when people are able to embrace my absurd predictions. Even then, maybe not so much because again, people are having a hard time understanding the concept. But yeah, you mentioned this, Victor. There was 4 different teams in the championship game. There were seven of the 8. Sorry, 8 division from the 8 divisional winners. 7 of them were brand new. Only one back to back. That was the Eagles, who ended the streak of 20 years of not back to back in the NFC East.
Right.
I remember where there was a time where I told you guys I don't see any other teams besides the Ravens, the Texans, the Chiefs, and the Bills winning the division. Guess what? None of them won the division. So
Yep.
that's just my thing. So, anyways, long-winded explanation. I went into the future. I looked ahead, and I decided to go and give the top 100 for a year from today. And I'll give you one. The Matthew Stafford one, and the top 20 was voted through the MMQB staff. There was 8 of us, so from 1 to 20 was a voting process. Don't totally yell at me. After that, go ahead and yell at me. That was all. That was all me. I made all the picks after that. But I did have Stafford in the top 15, and
Yes.
I'll share my ballot because I'm not going to out anybody else. It's not Bill Belichick in the Hall of Fame. It's not that serious. But I had Stafford like in my top 7 because he just balled out, and age is only a number to me when I see him play that well. And I guess I'll kind of out some people, and I don't think people will mind this, but not everybody felt the way I did about him being top 5, top 20 for sure. But like I think that, and shout out to my colleagues, they listened to me after I kept saying, think about the future. Think about team surroundings. Think about coaching changes. Think about player personnel changes. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of them were maybe saying, "Yeah, he's kind of old though, so let's go somewhere else." And I'll out myself again. I honestly did. I didn't have Lamar Jackson in my top 20. I thought he played really poorly. I thought maybe he's breaking down. A new coach,
Hmm.
but people disagree with me that he was one of our top 20 quarterbacks. That's fine. And people all have different takes here. Uh, one more thing, it was very difficult to assess Patrick Mahomes and Michael Parsons because they're going to go through an intense rehab where they might not be the same player. And
Yeah.
people lost their crap about that because how the hell is Michael Parsons top 17 when he should be top 5? He would have been top 5 in my ballot, but he got
Right.
hurt. So these are all things to consider. But I'm taking all the airtime here. But yeah, Stafford was definitely high on my ballot.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, Gilbert. Like you have to project ahead of time. And like one of the things that, I take advantage in fantasy football is those things, is that people get stuck on last
Yes,
year's results. And
yes,
you have like the reason that Christian McCaffrey won me the title this year was because I projected the fact that he was coming back. Now, was I hoping that he stay healthy? Yes, but if those players stay healthy, then it changes everything. And so I'm with you. You just don't know. As of right now, those injury concerns, especially when you don't know if Michael Parsons or Patrick Mahomes are going to be ready to go, at the beginning of the start of the season, you have to kind of put that out there as well. But I think once you start the season, then you can kind of see whether or not those players are going to be ready to go. And as you said, I do like what you did there because it's fresh in people's mind. You have this week before the Super Bowl where there's
yep.
not a lot of stuff going on. And then the last thing I'll say is I'm glad that you pushed for Matthew Stafford, and we're gonna get into why I think it was the right decision on your part to kind of push for him to be in the top 15 there. And then a couple more things here from the comments. Michael, we'll get to your comment because it actually has to do with us. We're gonna discuss both JSN and Puka in our next segment, or in one of our segments here. And then AMS says we need a new defensive corner. We can't go through this again on defense. We'll talk
Wow.
about that as well.
Okay.
So a lot to get into in a short amount of time, Gilbert. So I want to go fast here. One thing that they have done now, Gilbert, is the Rams hired Bubba Bentrone as the new special teams coordinator. He was on the Brown staff for the last couple years. He's been around. He's kind of been up and down. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with the new special teams coordinator. I want to get into it, during the off season. I just wanted to make sure that we talked about the fact that they just hired a new special teams coordinator, and just wanted to get your quick reaction to this.
Yeah, it's a big move. It's one that McVay needs to get right, especially if we're going to talk about maximizing that 1 year window of winning it all with Stafford. I feel like every year is going to be a 1 year window at this point in his career, and no year is given when in terms of against Father Time. You never know when he's going to come get you. But he
Yeah.
did play excellent. But yeah, Bubba's coming from the Browns. He's had experience working with the Colts. So uh yeah, I'm not really sure, his total background, but I know McVay is never afraid to go away from outside his tree. He doesn't really like to go with, who he's comfortable with or who he has prior working relationship with. He just kind of, starts doing his research and see how it goes. But yeah, it's hard to say, to say much details here because you've never really, seeing this connection here with McVay and Bubba. And also the Browns aren't really the best team, but the Browns tend to have decent special teams. Obviously, they usually have outstanding defense. Or problem is offense. So, but when you get somebody from the Browns, it's always kind of like, really?
Yeah.
But it's not just that. So to me, it's one of these things you're gonna have to trust McVay. He knows the importance of the hire. So for him to settle on Bubba, I think speaks highly about what he heard and saw from him in the interview process.
Yeah, and they drafted a rookie kicker, and he did pretty well. So especially in a bad weather city like that, I think that speaks volumes. We'll see if he's able to develop some, what he does with Harrison Mevis, if he's the long time, if he continues to be the kicker, I should say, or if they go out and sign a free agent. We'll see. We'll see. And I'm very intrigued. We'll talk more about this hire during the off season, Gilbert, because I want to get to this Rams season wrap up, and I have 10 things here for you, Gilbert. And I want you to just we'll go quickly, but I want to spend some time on the first one, and that is that the Rams offense was a special unit, right? We had Matthew Stafford with an MVP season. You had Puka with an Offensive Player of the Year type of season, and then of course you had Devontae Adams leading the league with 14 receiving touchdowns. You talked about the fact that you think that Matthew Stafford deserves to be in the top 15, maybe in the top 10 players, top 100 next year. Just tell me what your takeaway, I guess, was from this offense, and where do you see it going, I guess, going forward? And then what McVay has been able to create here with this offense.
Yeah, he was able to evolve it again. He was able to incorporate some big pieces like Devontae Adams and adding the 13 personnel and making something out of the Kobe Parkinson's addition. I did not see that coming. It didn't work out with Terrence Ferguson, but the flashes were there. He could maybe be a big piece next year. But having the 13 personnel 2 years ago was the gap scheme for the running game where he tweaked his 11 personnel, but still going heavy 11 personnel, but he was running it a little differently. So I think maybe expect another tweak here to get it to another level. And honestly, they reached a pretty high gear. This one could be more on McVay having a better feel for his personnel when to go to 13, when to go to 11, when to rely on the running game. Obviously, you got two running backs now, and Blake Corum maybe he continues to ascend. Yeah, Kyron Williams is still very productive. Uh, we don't know how the offensive line is going to look. Rob Havenstein's talking about retirement. So there could be an issue there, or maybe a tweak, whatever. I know there's the backup there is a McClendon has been pretty solid. We'll see if it's his job to lose, but overall, I think maybe expect some kind of tweak because he has done that for the last 3 years. In terms of adding another big gun, like hey Delbert, shout out to you. I appreciate that, Delbert, one of our loyal listeners here of House of Horns. Thank you for that. Much love. We really appreciate that. But send the question, Delbert. We'll answer your question for showing us the money there. But yeah, that's really kind of you. And you know, to kind of go into my thoughts here, and then I'll end with Puka in a bit. But uh, for the last couple of drafts, McVay's been trying to go for a big tight end, and rightfully so. He was right on it because we see the trend: the Brock Bowers, the Trey McBride. There's so many good tight ends coming out that obviously you got Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, and he wanted one of those, and it just didn't work out. But he still got Terrence Ferguson. He got Kobe Parkinson's. He got Davis Allen. You got Tyler Higbee. So he has a bunch. So I don't know if he's given up on that dream, but it wouldn't surprise me if he goes for another big gun. But I don't, because there's a lot of tight ends, by the way. I just started doing my draft research, and apparently there's a lot of good ones coming out. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
maybe that dream should be okay. Like you have enough. Maybe you say Devontae Adams, might be on the decline. You want to go for another wide receiver. We'll talk about Tutu. That one did not work out. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the Puka Nacua and Matthew Stafford show, and Puka Nacua needs to get paid. That's another thing for the offseason. How long will the contract be? How much money? I think show him the money, give him whatever he wants for the next 3 years, and then make it a short-term deal. And to answer the question of Puka and JSN, I'm gonna go with Eric Williams said. It's Puka because he's a force of nature, and he's so spot on with that analysis. He could do anything on the field, come out of the backfield, block for you, set the table, massive catch radius, physical, puts his body on the line. Not saying JSN is not good. JSN put on a freaking show on the championship game. He is a stud, keeps getting better year to year. But I think there's a little more to offer for Puka. But this is you're kind of just nitpicking at this point. But yeah,
Yeah, and do you think that do you think he wins offensive player of the year? Puka?
uh, that's a good question because I feel like for a long time JSN had the lead in that, and Puka did miss some time, not a lot of time, like 2 games, I think, right? And he almost caught up to him while missing one full game in terms of stats. So yeah, it's a good question. I think it's still JSN's because I think a lot of times, maybe it's a good time to crap on voters, right? I feel like people get caught up on who's the favorite like by November, and they don't really care about what happens after that. And I think JSN was such a big front runner for that it was probably his award. But if Puka gets it, I would not be mad at it. I wouldn't even be mad if Christian McCaffrey who gets it or like a Bijan Robinson. But honestly, it should be either JSN or Puka Nacua.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I'll be quick here, Gilbert, with this in terms of the offense being a special unit. Um, you know, I was listening today to Mina Kimes. She had JB Long, who's the play-by-play now guy for the Rams, and he, I didn't know a lot about JB Long in terms of how much knowledge he had, not just about the Rams, but just they did like a little thing on the awards, Mina Kimes made her you know, why she was voted for Drake May, and then JB Long kind of, he made his case in terms of for Matthew
Wow.
Stafford, and I thought it was a good conversation. If you have some times, like just go listen to the first 30 minutes of it, and they get into the Puka of it all as well, and then of course Matthew Stafford. And I the thing that stuck with me from JB Long's uh end was the fact that he said that Matthew Stafford is the kingmaker. He phrased it that way. And then you look at it, we've talked about this before with Megatron, with Cooper Cup's triple crown, and now this season with Puka Nacua. He's always been the guy that has made those guys shine, right? And I don't think he gets the credit for it. They just give him, hey, he was the one that was throwing to these special receivers, right? But you also take into consideration the fact that without Matthew Stafford, you don't have that running game this season, right? Because you're getting lighter boxes. And so I thought that was a great point by JB Long. And in terms of this offense, I mean, you just look at it, and I thought the other point that he made, and I'll end it with this, is you had two different MVP seasons from Matthew Stafford. You look at the first half before Puga got hurt, they were in 11 personnel, Gilbert, and they were, like as he mentioned, they were a Ferrari, and they were out there and they weren't afraid to use that Ferrari and have it go in full speed, right? Then Puga gets hurt, and then they adjust. They turn to 13 personnel, and then they take off and they become a different team. And they're the ones that kind of pull this team into the playoffs and then get them all the way to the NFC title game. And so for me, like that was the special thing about like the fact that you can evolve and be able to what you have in your toolbox if you're McVay going forward. I think it's gonna continue to be a special unit as long as you have Matthew Stafford healthy and you can keep him upright.
Yeah, I know we got to get going, but or to the next topic. But the last thing I'll add to this is kind of again more looking ahead to let's say 2027 at this point. If if you go all in with Stafford and you again punt on finding his replacement or the quarterback of the future, uh, it will definitely be worth it if they win the Super Bowl. But if there's no plan in place for succession, expect 2022 to happen again. So these are things to think
Yeah.
about. We're like, it's like if you're not going to think about the future, you better make sure the present you're going to maximize it and get everything you want.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that stuff. All right, Gilbert, I'll go quick with these now. Special teams cost them the number one seed. I mean, you mentioned it, I mentioned it. It was, if it wasn't for special teams, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd be getting ready for, the previewing the Super Bowl instead, Rams and Patriots. But special teams, we talked about it, was a problem.
Yeah, I went back to I remember the Carolina game where people thought I was overreacting and they blew it. And I forgot what week it was there. And I said that game is going to cost them the number one seed. That game is going to, change the road to the playoffs or for the playoffs. And they if they would have won that game and lost the Seattle game still, there still would have been they would have been tied. And I think that would have made them maybe have some urgency, beat Atlanta, and then take your chances in a Week 18 who wins in tiebreakers. But uh, they blew it that one. I don't remember special teams really played a factor in that one, but it did in Seattle, which again hindered their number one chances. Uh, Philadelphia for sure comes to mind. San Francisco when they lost to Mac Jones in Week 4 comes to mind. Throughout the whole season, even like the bat punt in Carolina for no, it was Chicago, the Chicago game, playoff game. That was a bat punt before Keller Williams a miracle game time touchdown. So throughout the season, it was just bad special teams. Kicker change in the middle. You fire a special teams coordinator in the middle of the season. The first time that McVay's ever done that. We could keep going on and on here. I know they were better in 24, but they were historically bad in 23 when Blackburn first got there and McVay gave him a pass. We're like, hey, it's his first year and things didn't get much better. So to me, going back to that bubble hire, like it has to be the right one because they've been pretty bad. And I don't know where I saw this, but for DVOA, that pretty much the analytics stats, and I should probably give them a shout out because I was crapping on analytics earlier in the year when they were giving the Seahawks love. But look at the Seahawks now; they're in the playoffs. So it was a
Yep.
analytics year. I still think that it's not everything, but it is something. Um, Especially for special teams, it shows that the Rams have been 32 in DVOA for like the last 7-10 years. Maybe they've been bad in
Since
special teams.
2020. That's a good
Yeah,
pull. Yeah,
5 years.
I saw that same the same
So,
the same thing.
and I covered the Chargers, and I remember thinking they're pretty bad too. And the Chargers were like 28 on that list, so they've gotten better under Ryan Ficken. So where's the improvement for the Rams? So you got to get better.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I'm glad you brought up the stat because that's where I was gonna go. But yeah, all right, moving on here, Gilbert. The secondary ended up being a problem, just like you predicted. I know Happy Gilmore got on you about it. Jesse got on you as well, but eventually
I was
you were
right.
right. I mean, the secondary ended up being a problem.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like take a victory lap here because obviously it cost the Rams at the worst time, and it cost them pretty much all the time when it came to being the worst time to for that to occur. But yeah, I know people were optimistic. They were feisty. They were creating a couple turnovers. They were breaking passes, but like there was many times where Kobe Durant got burnt, and I know Quentin Lake also got burned a lot of times, but he was just doing everything that at some point he was gonna get
Yeah,
in the way, and then like, it's gonna look bad on him. I know in that championship game against JSN that he had the assignment a lot of times on JSN, and it's like this guy's a natural safety, and we're over here having him cover the best receiver because the cornerbacks can't do anything. Uh, and this is not a knock on him. He's so versatile. That doesn't outweigh what the issues in terms of coverage, but you got to do better than just have Kobe Durant out there. Emmanuel Forbes wasn't the answer. Darius Williams, Akilo Witherspoon. These are fine veterans, but they shouldn't be your starters, and they got hurt a lot too. Uh, the safeties are good too with Cam Kitchens and Cam Crow was a free agent, but you got to get better corners. And to me, when you like, and this is another thing where like people think I give Sam Darnold a lot of crap. Sam Darnold played excellent in the championship game. I thought Bryce Young played excellent in the playoff game. But to me, when you carve up the Rams, I don't give you that much credit because I know they're a bad special teams. Like I've seen Bryce Young carve up the Rams defense twice, but I also seen him struggle many other times against much better secondary. So I don't know how much I take away from that. Darnold played great, and he overcame his demons against the Rams. So I'll give him a lot of credit for that. That was a team that had your number. But to carve up the Rams, it doesn't say much to me. So that tells you how bad they were.
Yeah, I give more of the credit to Clint Kubiak and what he was able to do with JSN to spring him open and moving him around, and kind of keeping Chris Shula um to the comment earlier where they were saying that they don't want to see we need a new defensive coordinator. We can't go through this again on defense. I mean,
It's
I
personnel.
gave Chris Shula the first. He won round one. He lost the other two rounds against Clint Kubiak, Gilbert.
Yeah, but you got to have some better horses in that cornerback, especially when you're facing a guy of the caliber of JSN. And I remember telling you, I'm like, did anybody else do anything like in terms of pass catchers in Seattle? Like I know that Shahi had that one big bomb at the beginning, but that was one catch, and Barner didn't do much. The Titans didn't do much. Out of the backfield, running backs didn't do much. It was just Walker as a runner, and then JSN and Darnold picking them apart, and that kind of tells you you just like even though it was predictable, you couldn't do anything to stop it, and that tells you how bad you were in that area.
Yeah, I mean, it was something that you continue to talk about, and it came to fruition. Another name, Gilbert, that people got on you about, and they kept telling us about, and you were there in 2022. You got to see this player, and that is Tutu Atwell's contract was a bust. I still don't understand why they gave him $10 million for a year for this season. At the end of the season, he was just inactive. He was never active in any of the playoff games, Gilbert.
Hopefully by now people get it that this guy is not going to contribute. Like if he does, it's going to be one time or twice a year. Obviously, the big touchdown in the Colts game, cool. He got his moment. I'm not going to take that away from him. This is not even on Tutu Atwell. It's just the Rams fans who think he needs to do or he's going to do more because he was a second round pick. At some point, this is my personal rule. By year three, if you've not made the leap, you're not gonna live up to your first round, second round status. So give up on that. And I think a lot of fans hold on to that. And I think quarterback, sure, I'll give you a pass on that because there's so much that needs to help you out in terms of team surroundings. And Sam Darnold's a perfect example of him doing better as a first round pick elsewhere. But most of the time, like the Rams have a nice setting there, and he can't contribute. So uh, I don't know how he got $10 million. I got to figure that one out. There might be a book about it one day for this season. But where was he? It was the same story. He'll get you one catch for 40 yards, and he's going to average 40 yards per reception for the season because he had 4 catches all year. But I'm going to stop myself because I don't want to come off as bashing Tutu out. This is more about the Rams fans thinking that he's going to do something, but he's not going to ever do that. So I will be shocked again if he's on this roster.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised, Gilbert, if they do end up getting if they end up drafting a receiver in the first round. I just I as you said, Devontae Adams getting old. You also are gonna want to pay Puka, which I want to get into with you here before we end the show. And so yeah, I just think you're probably going to end up drafting a receiver here in the first round. So and then AMS here says we had a big problem on third down. We need a third wide receiver who can get separation on third down. If that USC receiver is there at pick 13, I think it is, or is it 18? I forget what where they're
Mm,
selecting the Rams are.
15 or
Um
14, one of those.
yeah, if I'm them, I'm taking him there because you need a guy who can separate and to be the third guy because Puka and Devontae Adams can only do so much, and they're getting up there in age. And then with Puka, his thing is he's a physical guy, and so he's taking a lot of hits, and so you want to ease that on him. Gilbert, I had a couple of other things like the rookie class had some up and downs. The tight end group is the deepest position on the team because of what we saw with the 13 personnel. Blake Corum took the next step, and then also Sean McVay continues to have um he continues to have game management issues, which he's gonna have to correct. So those were some of the things that I had on here. But I want to close out here with one of the questions here that I'm very intrigued that I wanted to ask you, and I kind of want you to kind of go into it a little deep into it, and that is who gets paid first, JSN or Puka? And if you're the Rams, are you the first one? So that way the price doesn't go up, because if you're waiting for the other, then the price is going to go up. So who gets paid first, Puka or JSN? And then if you're the Rams, do you go first?
Well, the other thing is like, this happened the last time some star wide receivers were about to get paid. It was like waiting it out. And I know Jamar Chase ended up being the last one, but that wasn't totally by choice because the Bengals were just cheap and they waited to the end. But there was a time where he was waiting for Jefferson because he thought he was better than Jefferson. And at some point, it was just, we're done waiting. With that being the Vikings, you're going to be the highest paid, Jefferson. But yeah, Chase is going to pass you. We think you're better. And I think Jefferson is better than Chase in terms of just player, not because of surrounding. He doesn't have a quarterback. But that's what it came to. But that kind of tells you a lot of times players care about being the highest paid, so they kind of look to see who's going to get paid at the same time. And you can make a case for JSN and Puka Nacua being 1 and 1A. I don't know who's what in that order, but I'm gonna say Puka Nacua caves and gets paid first because he does have a durability issue. He also has he doesn't have Jason's game could last to the next 5 to 7 years. And I know in football years that's pretty long, but he's that smooth of a player. He doesn't take punishment like like Puka. So he could wait it out. And you know what? I'm gonna get my money eventually. And also JSN is a first round pick, so he
Yep.
gets the 5th year option. He gets more money. Puka Nacua is not making much as a 5th round pick. So uh, durability, short term contract. You're a 5th round pick. He's gonna get paid first. I feel like I mean like he's more willing to get paid first because of everything I just laid out. But I will do like one of these monster like 3-year deals where it's going to be difficult for JSN to match the annual average salary because, you know, let's face it. I think the Rams could say, well, you know what? We'll give you $40 million per year, but it's only for 3 years. You will be by far the highest paid wide receiver. I actually kind of lost track. I think it's maybe like at 37, 38 right now. I'm not entirely sure if Chase got the 40. Uh, but whatever it is to shatter that, but it's only for 3 years. You don't get like the 5 years, 6 years, which is also kind of BS. There's usually funny money at the end anyway. So we'll give you everything up front. And if you bet on yourself, Puka, you might get a chance for another payday in 3 years. But also we're worried about your physicality on the field. You might break down faster. And then for JSN, obviously, he could come back and say, you know what? Maybe my annual average salary is not on the same level as Puka, but you give me more money over years, you give me more protection over years, boom, we'll make a deal. So that is an interesting one to discuss here. And since we are answering questions, and John, I see your Sam Darnold question. You're saying that I'm slandering Sam Darnold. Fine, I get it. I've been against Sam Darnold, but I will say he was a difference maker for the Seahawks. I was wrong about him being a Super Bowl worthy quarterback. He landed in the right spot. The Seahawks were holding him back, but I won't take away what I said about him looking good against the Rams. I promise you, it's going to be much more difficult to do what he did to the Rams to the Patriots defense because they have Christian Gonzalez, they have Mike Brable. That's just a better defense. I'm not saying they're going to win
They
the
have a better
game.
secondary.
Yeah, it's
Way
gonna be more
better.
difficult. My point was just anybody could look good against the Rams defense. I guess anybody who's a starting quarterback in the NFL. But that was just my thing. I'm done knocking Sam Darnold. I'm gonna have to look at his poster for 2 weeks or a week straight in Santa Clara. I was wrong, Sam. You're the real deal. But in terms of the championship game, it was the Rams defense. Sorry. I just had to say that.
Yeah, and I mean, eventually these guys figure it out, and I just think it's a trip too. Going back to Sam Darnold, the fact that he has a chance to be the first. Well, he is the first. He is the first quarterback from his class to make it to the Super Bowl, and he would also be the first one to win the Super Bowl from
Hey,
his. Uh,
Sam reminded reporters that he got to the Super Bowl in 2023. He was just a backup for the 49ers. But I
yeah.
thought that was a great
Okay.
response.
There you go. We'll
He's
see.
been there
We'll see.
before.
Yeah. We'll see what happens there, Gilbert. But yeah, that pretty much ends it here for us. We'll put, that puts the bowl on the season. Rams went 12-5, were the fifth seed and got knocked out by the Seattle Seahawks in some epic three games there. It was a fun season above everything, and the future looks bright for this team. And can't wait. This puts a cap now here, Gilbert, on our fourth season covering this team. House of Horns, you started it with. I was telling the story on the solo show that I had pretty much had stopped doing journalism and until we started talking about doing podcasting and jumping on and starting this show. So it's been 4 years now. I can't Where has the time gone? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's crazy.
I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna kind of push you in a live chat, Victor. But I want everybody in the comments to tell Victor to do more solo shows because you knocked it out of the park after the championship game, and I think people are tired of waiting for me. So they want to hear your thoughts right away, and they want you to talk to them because you know how to, go with the Q&A. I feel like you do a great job of making people feel heard, and that's what we're all about on Compas on the Beat. The network here is like we want people to engage. We want to hear your thoughts. We're not here to mock anybody, and we just want to have a good conversation and have a place where people could gather. And I thought you did a great job after the title game. So I want more solo shows in 2026 from Victor Javier Corona here on House of Horns.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do, but yeah, we'll see. Uh, is Darnold the first USC quarterback in the Super Bowl? I
Yeah, I
started
think
going
the
back
start as a quarterback. I think I saw that stat from you actually the USC Twitter account.
to start. Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy with all the history that they've had. That is pretty crazy. 60 years of the Super Bowl, and he's going to be the first one to start. Wow, that is crazy. All right, Gilbert. So with that, we're going to be back during the off season. We have free agency that we'll get into, guys. We'll get into all your questions again with the off season stuff, free agency, the draft, all that. Anything that happens with the coaching staff, whether or not someone gets poached. There is still a chance that Mike LaFleur ends up with the Cardinals, Gilbert. So we'll get into all that. It'll
yeah,
probably be sometime at the end of February, maybe early March. We'll try to see what we can get. But in the meantime, we will be at Radio Row next week and we'll get you content. I am hoping, Gilbert, to be able to go and talk to Cooper Cup. I want to ask him. I have three
ah,
questions for him, so I want to ask him about his Rams stuff. I hope he's okay answering some Rams related questions. But yeah, I can't wait to try to go and look for Cooper Cup and asking him some questions, and maybe even Ernest Jones, kind of do a
yeah.
little bit of both of those two guys as well.
Yeah, former Rams. That's the one thing about Super Bowl Radio Row Week, where a lot of media gets sent out to cover the Super Bowl, but like it's not the team that they cover, so they always try to find an angle to make it about the team they cover. And the
Yeah.
Rams reporters are out there. I think our guy Gary Klein's going to be out there. He could talk to Ernest Jones. He could talk to Cooper
Yep.
Cup. So, boom, perfect idea for you too.
Yep, and then we'll try to get Gary on. Anybody that'll answer some Rams question, we'll have some content for that as well. So you're not getting rid of us for a couple of weeks, but you will see some of the content up. So make sure you're supporting, you like, and subscribe,
Yeah.
and like even like John Hobbs in here, Rob Navarro, who I haven't seen before. It's awesome to see new names. We really enjoy that.
Yeah, and honestly, I've seen a couple, not just John. I've seen another comment about the Seahawks. Kendrick List says, "Go Hawks!" Like that tells me you watch the Rams Seahawks shows and you like this. So stick around here. Check out everything we do at Compas on the Beat. That's where we talk all NFL. We're gonna talk Seahawks there. So yeah, if we're getting the opposing teams here to stick around, we're doing something right. So that's definitely high praise. I know we disagree, John, but you're definitely welcome on any program that we have here under the Compas on the Beat banner.
Yeah, and with that, Gilbert, let's get to it. We got to get to Radio Roll next week. So, yeah, go ahead and get us out of here.
Yeah, that's it on 2025. The season is over. Fun one, disappointing one, but also they got better than what they did last year, the year before. So hey, maybe the next step is to make it to the big game. But we'll find out. We'll talk about that throughout the off season. Like Victor mentioned, we'll probably get back here late February or early March, and we'll get into free agency. But it was good to discuss the season here. I wasn't able to join the championship game recap because of work, but Victor was here holding it down. So I'm glad I was able to share some of my thoughts here. But time to get going here. Ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.